Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, hurdlers especially, and coaches. It's Coleman and Corry from the clubhouse, the one true heir to the presidency of Blackies and Bromley Harriers. We've got a few people joining, that's good. Today we're going to be doing an interview with Issie Hilditch. Issie can boast quite a few personal bests and competition championship wins. She was the English schools champion in 2017. Oh, hello, Issie.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining me on Hurdlers in the House. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I hope training's going well in lockdown and things like that.
Yeah.
So, Issie, we're going to do slightly different things. Many people who've been staying tuned to the series. We've got a few people on now, which is great. Some coaches, and hopefully we're going to have some people from all the way in America as well. Thanks to you.
I don't know if they are. I feel like some of them will be asleep. It's like a weird time, I think. Well, it's at 1 o'clock, I think. Their time.
And they're free to join. Hello there to Nick Corry from the clubhouse, literally sitting just next to us.
He's sitting upstairs.
Yeah, that's my dad, the president. So, Issie, you are in John Blackie's training group, as am I.
Yeah, I am.
When did you first come to John Blackie's group? When did that happen?
Yeah, so I started athletics probably when I was like 10 or 11, I think 11 years old, and I joined John when I started hurdling, actually. That's because he was one of the time, was one of the only people who was coaching hurdles at the club. So I joined him pretty young. I think I was like 13, 14, which is when I started hurdling. So, yeah.
Okay, and then obviously since then you've gone on to do great things. But you started off as doing 300-meter hurdles, 400-meter hurdles.
The dark days.
Long hurdle there.
I actually properly started doing actual, I don't know, running or athletics. I was a long jumper at first. I used to train with full pattern. I used to do all the B stuff, and I used to do a lot of long jump. And I was convinced I was going to be an Olympic long jumper. It worked out great for me. Waiting between jumps, not having to race, because I think racing always really scared me, growing up. But I was pretty good at 400s, 300. That was a distance that definitely worked for me, better than the sprint hurdles worked for me. So yeah, I ran 300 hurdles when I was under 17, 15, 16. I did a bit of 400 hurdling, but that was just too long for me. I also had an issue with nerves. Definitely, it's a scary race. You know that it's scary.
Yeah. I mean, John definitely has a talent. Well, the spotting talent.
Yeah.
I know I was an 800-meter runner, but when John caught me, and he sort of said, "Oh, you should come over and do some 400-meter hurdles." And here I am now, about 5 hamstring tears later, still going strong. Yeah, that went well. But anyway, we've got a few followers, but I'm thinking just in general that we've got some people that will be watching this sometimes in the near future.
Yeah.
That we could do a little demonstration. I see you've got your hurdle there in the background.
I do. Coleman was, for viewers, Coleman was pushing me for this. I didn't just bring my hurdle into the house.
Exactly. So we're going to have a tutorial from herself, the chap, on how to do good hurdle technique, taken from John Blackie especially. So
this is an I can say that I'm actually no coach in this situation. I'm just a demonstrator, I guess. And actually, mostly, if I show anything, I would show anything that I did over lockdown, because I have 2 hurdles in my garden, which were really helpful for lockdown. I trained with Annie, who's my other hurdler who's my age, and she put together this whole plan of different drills that you could do at home.
Yeah, Annie's in our group as well. She's a fantastic sprint hurdler. You guys have had quite a rivalry, haven't you?
No, we really haven't, actually.
No?
I mean, I guess you could call us rivals because we run kind of similar times. So I think we were 2 good friends, as friends, to be rivals. If anything, I miss her a lot because she makes me a better athlete. by just running with her in training. So
Yeah, well, the way I've seen you guys have been like pretty much neck and neck like the whole
yeah,
time,
definitely.
and that's probably been good for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know, it was really good because we also hurdle on different legs. Like she has a different knee leg to me, so when we hurdle up next to each other, it's a bit like we're mirroring one another. Okay, Coleman's gonna do his first hurdle demonstration. Okay. Anyway, do I have to do this hurdle situation? Yeah.
If you want. Anyway, we're gonna just for our viewers, we're gonna show you a brilliant technique from Isabella.
Oh, it's not gonna be brilliant. It's gonna be something.
I'd just like to note that everyone watching, there's a big difference in terms of sprint hurdle technique, which Isabella will demonstrate, and then 400 hurdles technique, which is a bit more sloppy, which is what I'll be demonstrating in a little bit, I think.
Okay, this isn't actually like technique or anything. This is like a drill that actually John showed me and Annie put together during like lockdown, which is for your lead leg. And if you do this, you'll wake up in the morning feeling pretty sore in the front of your legs. So it's this. You just like put your, I don't know how to put it, your foot on the top of the hurdle, and then you can hover it there, and then bring it down again, and then yeah, you can do it on both legs.
Then
If you whatever lead leg you are, you know, both legs. Right, that's gonna be my demonstration for today. Thank you.
It's a good drill for those of you who are looking to do some hurdle training at home during lockdown, or well, we're coming out of lockdown.
Yeah.
If we have a second lapse of the coronavirus, obviously it would be very useful. So yeah, just like grab your hurdle that you have lying around in your house and just do that.
Or just like a chair. I mean, honestly, I think Annie puts together some really, really great drills that you can just do at home. I also do a lot of this one thing where if you put your legs out, I mean, I'm sure you can't really see me very well, but you put your legs out in a hurdling position, you can like do lifts without hurdles. And that's a really great way to warm up as well before you hurdle. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're at heart, I think it's fair to say you're a 60-meter hurdler. That's like the main event.
Me, not so much. I think I'm a 100-meter hurdler. I'm not really 60 for me. Like, I've never really been a great at, like, with blocks, with starting. Like, that has never been a strength of mine. Like, I've always been more powerful. I think that's why I was really good at, like, 300, 400 hurdles earlier, because I was always better at, like, gaining momentum and, like, going along, like, longer distances. And I've always seen 100 hurdles, for me, is always, like, a 200 race almost, when, like, 60 hurdles is kind of like 100 straight race, which is just a little bit too short for me. So yeah.
I mean, fun fact: I am a hurdler myself, and I've never actually completed a 110 hurdle race. So.
I mean, the men's hurdles are pretty high. Like they're pretty rough, you know.
They are aggressive. I see our coach has joined. Shout out.
Yes, I joined.
Yeah, waved at him. So yeah, you are a sprint hurdler at heart, but you have dabbled in the past in a few other events, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that? I mean, I saw that last year you actually did a javelin throw.
Let's not talk about that. No. I mean, last year I was actually very injured, so I tore my soleus muscle, or I don't know if I could say tore it. I kind of tore it. It was a pretty significant injury, and it took me a really long time to rehab from that, because I went too quickly back into running, because I just desperately wanted to run. And I tore it in America pretty early in the season, so I was like kind of imagining, Coleman's going to go run over a hurdle while I'm talking. I was kind of imagining that I would be able to get back to at least the outdoor season in the UK after the US. And yeah, I went to that match. My dad was actually the team manager at the time as well. Yeah, definitely. That was kind of part of it. There was no one to do the javelin, so I just went in at the last minute and I threw a ridiculously terrible throw. I think it was 12 meters. I mean, that's just a really, really weak attempt.
Well, I mean, it's good. I mean, to be honest, I mean, this is black and wrong, but all clubs in general. I mean, athletics is a sport. Even though you may be specialised in one or two events, it's always good to be a team player, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to have a 12-meter throw on my para 10. Like, definitely not 100% feeling that as a great score. And I mean, it showed me that I could be a heptathlete, because Because at moments, I think to myself, yeah, I could definitely be a heptathlete. I can run 200. I can run like the 100 hurdles, and maybe I could learn how to high jump. But then I just know that I can't throw. I just know that I can't throw with like a deep-seated can't throw attitude.
So it's good. I mean, for me, my personal experience is that I've found my ability in other events. So I did a bit of decathlon, but I don't think I would have come to that had I not been, helping out the team and been chucked into other events.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I found hurdling. That's how I found hurdling, because usually, like when you're like 12, 13 years old, like not many people have like done that yet. So a lot of the time you get people into hurdles by throwing them into events at the last minute they don't really want to do. And that's how I ended up doing hurdles. I was like that typical kid that was like chucked into a race at the last minute, and just kind of got along with it.
You were great, obviously.
I mean, I think that you can kind of tell. I mean, I don't know. I feel like my coach, like, I feel like John is going to be on this call thinking, like, oh my God, she's taking crap. But you will be able to find that I think that people can either take to hurdles or they don't, in like a way that if you kind of have to not be scared of them. You kind of just have to run for the 3 strides in between each run. And you can work with that. I feel like you can definitely work with that. So, yeah.
Thumbs up from John there. That's good. So, I mean, we talked about injury earlier. I mean, I've certainly had my fair share of injuries with hurdles. So I do think it's important that, I guess, we touch on it, being, on hurdles in the house.
Yeah.
What's your experience with injury? I mean, how many have you had since hurdling, and how do you, like, prevent it, overcome it, get better from it, and what's the next move? I mean, like, do you change your style a bit, or do you move on? Like, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue is with hurdling is, like, someone once told me they were like, you're not really a hurdler until you fall at least once, and like, if you fall, it's going to be pretty high chance to get into something, I feel. And I had a really bad injury. I think the worst one I can like recall is like, I think it was 2014. I was running in the England Athletics Championships. I was running the 300 hurdles, and I just got myself in such a, like, I don't know, I was so nervous, and I had a tendency to like run too fast into the second hurdle, and I just came up way too close to it. I clipped it with my front foot. I got my front foot like under like the front of the hurdle.
Give us a demonstration.
Yeah, I can show you. I mean, I don't really want to like spark that part of my brain. Like, if you see it like that, that's how I hurdled it. And I basically got tangled in the hurdle, and I was just down on the floor, and I was like, this is the craziest injury I've ever had. And I broke my metatarsal in one of my feet, and the other foot was just completely twisted, like really bad strain. And so I was actually in a wheelchair for like a week with that, because I couldn't use crutches because both feet were kind of damaged, I guess. I don't know. And it took a really long time to rehab from that. And my ankles haven't really been the same since. Like, I'll always get like, I'll be at a competition and I'll be putting lots of like strain through my body, and I'll like feel my ankle like, slightly kind of tense up, or I feel like a little twinge or something. Like, they've never been the same ever again. And I think that for me, getting over it, like moving on, was like making sure that I did lots of exercises, like even if it's every day, like for my balance. Using bands definitely has helped a lot, just making sure my feet are really strong. Actually, some of my physios at Princeton, when I did a similar soleus injury again, I would do like feet exercises where I would like control marbles with like different toes, just to try and like get my feet into like a different, or like a better place. Yeah.
Well, so from that, obviously, I'm assuming that was your last ever 300 hurdle race.
Oh no, it wasn't. That was the issue, because I went back the next year, ran 300 hurdles again, and I would get so nervous between each race, like before each race, like I would genuinely lock myself into toilet cubicles. Like, I would be so nervous, I would be shaking, crying. I'll be doing everything I could not to run it, because I think it's like once you're burnt, like it's really hard to like put your hand in a candle ever again. So like, I couldn't run that same race ever again. And it took me to do a year of it and hate it for me to like move on to something different that I wasn't so like. I felt like I was harmed by. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how did you? Because I've one of my, you know, personal, like, I mean, I have a memory of you as the 2017 English schools final,
Mm-hmm.
and you came up to me in the, I think in the season of the warm-up area, and you were just like, oh God, Colin, I'm literally going to throw up. And like your final, your race was in about like an hour or something.
Yeah.
So like, something must have gone, like something in your head just must have gone. I'm feeling like rubbish. This is a really important race, but I've got to do this. Do you think, like, how do you do that? How do you overcome that?
That's a really good question because I actually did not feel very well at English schools. I went in feeling super confident, like to that weekend, and I just wasn't particularly very well. And I was thinking to myself, like, how am I going to get myself up to do this? And I think that the main thing is that I thought to myself, like, if I don't do this, I will always regret it. And like, it's the same. It's honestly the same feeling that you get when you're like going to throw a javelin for a point. As like, it's better to be participating and doing something that you know you love than to not be doing it at all. And I'm so glad that I did go through with it and I ran those races. And I honestly have to thank John as well for it because he knows exactly how to like bring me like down to a level, like especially that weekend, and like say everything's going to be okay. Yeah, I mean, I've had some real nerve issues, and also I think you have to like be able to differentiate between like normal nerves and like anxiety, like pure anxiety. Um, and normal nerves like is the kind of thing that like a sports psychologist can like really help you with and talk to you about, like knowing that all the symptoms are usual, like needing to go to the loo loads of times, like things like that. And then anxiety, which is just like crying, locking yourself in places, not coming out, needing to throw up. Like, there's no difference.
You've got to keep calm in situations like that, and obviously, you have to keep a clear head. But it's gonna, like, I think one big thing for anyone doing athletics or any competition is that you can't do a competition, and even if it's bad, you can't let that get you down. You've got to pick yourself up and come back from it. And actually, I mean, even though you still came out of it really shoddy, I mean, you won it in the end.
I did, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you threw up after it or something, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, no, it was my last year because I had so many unlucky English schools. Like, I honestly, because I mean, 20, I've forgotten the years now, it feels so long ago. 2015, I did 300 hurdles at English schools and I fell over the last hurdle. Like, and that was like my chance to win. So, like, I think when I got to my last year, I was so especially nervous because I was like, I've wanted to win this championship for so many years. And, like, I just don't know how I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously that's all interesting, but so you're at university at Princeton, which is in the USA. Anyone who doesn't know,
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers and all that stuff. So I mean, I've seen like I've been looking at their Instagram account, and you actually got a Princeton. For anyone that doesn't know, is the Division One school, which means that they're extremely good at athletics. They're very prestigious. They focus a lot on their athletics. Princeton, in particular, invest a lot of money and effort into their track and field program, don't they?
Yeah, I mean we are funded by like the Friends of Princeton Track, so like all of our money, the thing to know about Princeton, especially like unlike other schools, is we kind of like the department kind of funds itself in a funny way. Like we don't like I don't believe anyway. I might be speaking incorrectly, but we don't drain on like the endowment that people see. It's kind of like a self-sufficient like kind of thing where we are funded by each other and by like the program.
Yeah, when I mean, a lot of athletes, I'm sure, are going to come through this at some point if they're thinking about going to the University of the States. But when I was going through that application process, the thing that I struggled with was like, where on earth do you start and how do you get stuck into that? because it's actually quite complicated. But once you get your head around it, you need to understand how exactly it works. So how did you do it first of all, and what would you recommend for people doing that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you need to know, like, if you're going to go into it, is, like, you've got to know your motives and, like, you've got to know what you want from a place. Like, for me, like, I really kind of had a clear idea that I didn't want to go into a place with, like, a complete decided major yet. That wasn't something that I could tell people. I wanted a place that was, like, academic, but, like, at the end of the day, I wanted a place where that was a more important factor than just athletics. So there was kind of a balance between the two things. And I mean, the navigating it personally, I actually went through an agency, so I didn't know anything about the process. I didn't really have any friends who had gone through it, so I felt kind of alone at the start. So I went to an agency. That was what I did personally. So yeah.
And you think the agency is like a good way to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to go, like, if you don't know where to go. You know, like, I could never have done it without someone telling me how the process worked. Like, when you went through it, I mean, I kind of, like, gave you some information and stuff like that to get you started, because you can, if you know exactly where you want to be and exactly what you want and how to do it, then you don't need one. But if you do need that support, then, yeah, I mean, and then it is really useful to have one. And I had a really great mentor, like, who was a Backy from Bromley Harry as well, James Markham. He was great, and he helped me from literally choosing Princeton at the end. Like, he kind of almost knew that was the place that I would thrive the most at, and he also helped me, like, even visa applications, like stuff like that that I had no idea how to go about, which they helped with.
How would you compare the competition over there? I mean, you've got friends here that I assume that study in the university in England. And what if, having shared your experiences with them, what would you say? Would you say it's like completely different? Is it more competitive? How would you compare the two?
Well, okay, so the people in America, obviously, I'd say that their overall college standard is probably, if you, like, go to the top, like the NCAA, is, like, honestly very professional. Like, very professional. Like, people are running really mad times. Like, if you're going for that big NCAA, like, top division kind of standard. But even, oh, look, he's going to go back and do some drills again. Watch him. But if you're going to go, I did Ivy League. Obviously, I'm in the Ivy League one. But the actual standard is very good, especially for women's track and, like, women's track hurdles. Like, I found that the standard of, like, the final of the Ivy League championships was just as good, if not better, than, like, the Bucks final. I'd say, like, the Bucks women's final. So, like, Annie and I, like, we started in the same place. Honestly, when I left America, like, we were definitely in a similar place, and we were like running still, like, 2 years later. I mean, she's a better 60 hurdler than I am, so she's doing better. But like, we were running in similar standard races. Like, if you're talking, like, the top British runners were the same, like, kind of standard as, like, the Ivy League final. I never found that I was not challenged. That was never a situation I found. Like, every race I would be in, like, was always an experience. It was a new place in America every time. It was a new thing that I could have learned from every single time. And the competition was mostly really, really great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, America's a much larger place, and the standard's probably going to be a bit higher because there's so many athletes and all that kind of stuff. I've tried to look at how, like, what is the NCAA? Like, what is that? Like, I've looked at it. Is it a university thing, or is it?
Yeah, it's like Bucks, but the American version, except because it is the whole of the US. And, you know, NCAA as well, beyond Bucks, is like, it's a governing body. It looks after athletics. It puts rules and regulations around it, which basically makes it, like, controlled. So, like, if you're an NCAA athlete, you're, like, a college varsity athlete. You are running for your college. You are abiding by the rules that are set by this, like, governing body. I mean, you know, and you run in those major championships at the end of the year if you are good enough. And I think the one thing that, like, the misconception is, like, at Bucks in this country, like, usually you'll be able to run in your Bucks championship unless you go to, like, some usually, I think, believe like Loughborough is definitely very competitive to get into Bucks. I don't really know the details because I didn't go through it, but in order to get into like NCAA's, like the ultimate championship, you have to go through your division to start with. You have to run in your division, and then you have to be good enough in that top part of your division to go into the actual championship. So you end up with really a true world class event. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's talk about the process of actually getting to university in the States. I mean, you had to go through it. I went through it as well. Many people struggle and almost fail. But I mean, the SATs, obviously. So you took the ACT, didn't you?
I took the ACT, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone's looking to do that, earlier the better would be my advice. Because I think I started a bit late and then ended up taking a gap year. But like, you know, all kind of worked out in the end. But SATs and ACTs, you need to put the practice in. And then in terms of the actual sports recruitment, there's a big misconception that some of the top institutions like Ivy League schools, Division 1 schools, I think even Division 2 and 3 as well, they don't actually do sports scholarships.
Yeah, so Ivy League don't, I believe. I know Princeton don't. It's financial aid. So if you need the aid, and that's across the whole university, you know, if you need the aid, you get the aid. You apply for it. It's mostly fair. I mean, you know, I don't really know like the details of everybody's experience with financial aid, but like there aren't sports scholarships. Like I had a mixture of like decisions to make when I like decided between Princeton, and I was between a few others as well. I was looking around Syracuse at the time, which is in upstate New York, and I was also looking into Boston University, which is a D2 school, but still had a really great track and like a pretty good program. Both of those schools had scholarships, and Princeton was financial aid. I mean, you know, it's like, I don't really know what it's like to be in a school where like scholarships are offered. Like, I didn't really ever consider signing to those schools. I never got a contract, so I don't know the exact details of how much you're signing away when you like sign a scholarship contract. But yeah, I had a pretty good experience.
With the sports recruitment, what it's doing is it's helping you boost your academic application as opposed to your financial savings.
Yeah, I mean, for Princeton, I mean, like, for Princeton, or even Ivy League, I believe, as I say, I don't really know about other schools particularly, but it was like you were being recruited based on your track, but that was also something that adds to your person, like, that makes you an applicant who is, like, interesting in a different way, where, like, so Princeton is pretty academically competitive in America. Like, if you compare that to, like, Oxford in England, Oxford wouldn't consider that athletics in the same way that Princeton would. They're, like, even though they're both just as academic as one another, if that makes sense. Because I think that Princeton or, like, Ivy League schools view athletics as something that, like, adds to a person, you know, as someone who's academic, as someone who is a student, because you are a student athlete. Rather than just being a student and like athletics being something that you do on the side, you know, yeah.
Well, I mean, in general, I think whether you're at university or you're working or you're just, you know, unemployed or on a gap year, athletics is like massive in building your character.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's good that the university support that as well.
Yeah, because I mean, at school, I was told, honestly, and this is no, I'm not offending the school I went to before I went to Princeton, but like I was encouraged to never apply to Oxford or Cambridge or anywhere like that, like because I was so into sport. You know, that was like, it was like, because you're so into sport, why would you want to go to a place like that, rather than it being like, this makes you interesting, you should definitely try, you know. I think that's the difference in like the way that athletics, like alongside academics, is viewed in the US versus how it's like viewed in this country.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously fantastic institutions in the UK like Loughborough that do focus a lot on sport and athletics. But generally, what I have found is that some, like in America, it's completely different. You know,
Yeah.
they focus a lot more on track and field programs, whereas I found in the UK, the more academically inclined universities they'll have a track and stuff as well, but they won't put as much focus into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this, and like, you can, wherever you go, you can always make it work. But like for me, like I found that like my university in America had the right balance for me to continue like the academic stuff I wanted to do. Like I'm really into like art and theatre, and I wanted to go into theatre design. And I knew that if I stayed in England, I wouldn't have been able to do that because I would have been like traveling back and forth between my life at the track and like my life at university. When I don't know, I find it easier to like have everything all in one place and to be able to just like go between two things, and to be able to talk with people and like immediately say you're a varsity athlete and then know what that means. Like that is definitely something that I found was beneficial, and it meant that like I mean at my uni I've ended up being able to do like a bunch of theatre shows. Like I've managed to like make sure I'm like an art major, like make sure I'm in the right department for me. So I think that's definitely like worked in my favour, which is helpful.
I mean, having something to do alongside your academic studies is massively important, and I've found my personal experience has helped me with my like Excel almost, because you've got something to run off steam, it builds character, all these things. And also, Lizzie has brought up an interesting point actually as well, that sports and athletics does bring a lot of money into these universities, and I think
it's true. Yeah, I mean, and that's why there have been discussions for other universities that offer scholarships, like whether they should actually be paying their athletes because those athletes are bringing revenue into the schools. I mean, I don't think that's such an issue where I go, Princeton, just because like they're not like there isn't support base. There is definitely, but there's more of a emphasis on the athlete and like the person rather than like just the money they bring in. I mean, that's from my personal experience. Like other schools, definitely, huge football culture, like people flying in from all across the country to go and see college games because it's professional. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, let's move towards more current issues right now. How's your training been in lockdown?
It's actually been pretty okay, because I like coming back to England because it means that I get to go back to obviously John's group, and it's like great because it's like spending. I love training in that group.
Were you were you kicked out of the States, or did you?
I was kicked out. Yeah, I was kicked out. I mean, I was kicked out. It was kind of anarchy. Like it was
Really?
It was really anarchy. Like I tell the story. It was just kind of crazy because I remember at the time, like we just finished our like conference championships, which was like the Ivy League indoor championships, and I was so tired from all of it, and I went to bed super early one night. It was like night. He's going to the back of the room to go home again. Anyway, I got back to bed really early. I woke up at like 1 a.m. or something, and my whole phone was like blown up, and it was like people going, "I can't believe we're being kicked off campus. It's crazy," and I was like, "I did not see this coming. This is just sudden and crazy." And then it was like, "Got to be out within a week." Like spring break, and then you're done, like everything out. I was like moving my stuff out, and within a week, honestly, from the time I first found out about COVID, like a week later, I was like out, going home on a flight home, like repatriated. Wow. Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, what's been the difference like here? Were you allowed to train like you are now training in the US?
What do you mean?
So, like at a track, was there any social distancing measures where people just are freely allowed to just train if they wanted?
Yeah, I mean the track at Bromley's track we didn't open until like pretty. I mean after the measures, like after the initial lockdown. I mean like I believe March, April, May it was pretty much closed, and then June things started to open up a little bit, and like you basically could have two people on one side of the track as long as they social distanced, and then two on the other, and then like you could book the inside lane. But now I think 6 people can train at the same time, like 6 people as long as we're distanced, which I've been doing. It felt pretty safe, pretty good. The only thing I'm missing right now is probably like gym, like weights, I'm definitely pretty weak on that front. Can't wait till my weights coach in America meets me again. New woman, no muscle mass.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like many people, have my second home as a clubhouse, so I've got a gym set up in here which I can use every day. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of the benefits of being son of the president, I guess. Um, so yeah, I mean, in terms of my lockdown training, I've literally been running on like the roads and the fields and stuff, but it's not the same, is it? Like,
No, it's not.
for me,
Especially
the
in my
grass is so uneven.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of funny because like initially in March, like I live pretty like near Kelsey Park. When I was training around there, like I would go to like the new like the field where people usually would like picnic and stuff, which is quite nice and flat, and I would just run
Oh,
on.
so you've got hurdles then to jump on.
I do have hurdles in my garden, but I don't have enough space to
Talking
just
about
like
the
set up a
people.
sprint hurdle race. You know, like I've got 2 hurdles. Most of the time, I'm walking over them, walking back over them to try and get the same effect.
Yeah.
But it was a bit rough, obviously, like the start, and also it was kind of the acceptance that like we're not really gonna have a season, so it's trying to motivate yourself in lockdown was like really hard. I found. Um, but yeah, I still kept myself like in good enough shape, and now I'm back on the track with John and the group, and I definitely feel like I'm on track to at least be in good shape, like the kind of shape I should be at this time of the year, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but I was training at the start of lockdown, just like doing sprints up hills and on the roads and on the grass, and there's this field near my house which I did a lot of training on. The ground was very like uneven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the tendency that I had with lockdown training, because it's so different and you don't have your coach there or your training room, is that you tend to lose some of the routine that you have to your training and warm-ups. So I think I probably wasn't cooling down and warming up in the same way.
Yeah.
And it's definitely important if people are going to be training at home from now. I think probably going to be training from home a lot more,
Yeah.
considering all that's happened. And if we have a second, outbreak of the coronavirus, it's important that people keep up their routine as best they can.
Yeah. It is really hard though. I mean, because when I first arrived in the UK, I was 100% on US time. Like, getting up every morning, like, not morning, 12 o'clock, like getting up and then just like procrastinating. I had online classes and I would definitely miss a lot of training. And I think also there's something to remember is that like everybody's mental health has taken a really big hit. And so it is naturally getting so much harder, not just with loss of routine, but like to really get yourself out and exercise. I would just do a lot of runs around my park sometimes if I couldn't get myself motivated to like warm up, warm down, do all of the different things that make my routine usually.
Yeah, I mean, if you get obviously some of the more specialised events such as hurdles, it is more difficult, and it's about trying to adapt and find a way to keep up with that. So, like my brother, for instance, is a pole vaulter, and obviously he can't use a pole vault bed, and unfortunately we don't have one in our back garden. So, like,
yeah, I think you can just only do things that like imitate, what you want to be like, what you want to achieve. I only have 2 hurdles, as I say. I'm not going to be setting up a full like race in my garden. Me
but
versus.
it all helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, lockdown's rough. I for everybody, like for anyone, non-athlete, athlete, hurdler, pole vaulter.
But it's important that you adapt to it. So, like what my brother did was he got a block, which is essentially it's a bit of wood with a hole in it, and then you got poles from his coach. And what you do is you run at it, and it's just like it acts like a normal box that you would see in pole vault, except the bed on the other side. So you run into it and just plant a pole. And although obviously he's not going up in the air and working on all that side of things, he's still doing something to keep his muscle memory stimulated and keep his muscles like stimulated as well. And it's important you don't forget that. I mean, I've been trying my best with benches and all sorts of stuff to do hurdle drills because it's important that you keep up your mobility and your flexibility. Although in recent weeks I haven't done much because I tore my hamstring in training, unfortunately. But it's getting back now, so that's the
Yeah,
main.
everyone live on the call. Pray for Coleman. You know. Anyway.
So I just wanted to talk about as well, um, what's it like for a day in the life at like Princeton University or here, with lockdown, without lockdown, but for a hurdler, what do you do? Exactly, because I mean, I've personally, I have my own routine, but I've had loads of people say, that they're rolling out every night in front of the TV, they're doing their stretches, because doing hurdles is very straining on the body, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my normal day in life, I guess, like, obviously it depends. Um, but I usually get up, do classes, like, more in Princeton, usually, like, morning to, like, around 4 p.m., I'd say. And then I'd say around 4:30 I train every day. And, like, in Princeton, I do train every day bar Sunday, like, 6 times a week. But I think the one misconception is that people think that every day means that, like, you're training for, like, 3 hours. Like, when I train with John, like, I would do 6 p.m. training hurdles for an hour, and then I would do an hour and a half of, like sprint training after that. So I would be training a really long time, but I wouldn't train so many times in a week. When in America, it's just more like spread out. So I'll do like one day will be like, a John Blackie like session, lots of hurdles, lots of running, leg weightlifting, and then the next day I'll get up and be like, oh my God, I can't do that again. But the session would be like, I don't know, general strength, core, stuff like that. So it kind of like fluctuates. And then yeah, every night, like after either one of those sessions, I do roll out every night. And I do stuff on my ankles because I have really bad ankles, as we said earlier. So like those are definitely things I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that you keep after you having injury like happens, you have to obviously maintain that level of flexibility, which I've been trying to do recently.
You'll get there, Coleman. Those hamstrings, one day, they'll come.
Yeah, I mean, doing hurdles is such a straining event, and I think one of the problems that I've had, and I'm sure many athletes will have as well, is that I tend to overtrain and overwork my muscles, especially when I haven't, like, if I've done like a big race or competition, and then I've either done very well and I'm motivated to get to the next level, or I've done not so well and I want to, get back up and get back and good again. And what I'll tend to do is I'll almost tend to let my motivation get the best of me.
Train too much? Yeah,
I'll go and
I've never honestly personally, maybe I'm just lazy, but I've just never really had that. I'm not going to be out there trying to do extra sets. Like, I don't know. Especially like less is more. Like that is true. Like for me especially, like less is more. Like I've always, like I'm the kind of person who trains to be a 200, 100 hurdler and can still run a 400 because like you got to trust that like everything that you do and like your base training has like it goes a long way. I do believe that. Um, yeah. Again, John will probably be there like, what is she all about? But I don't believe that you really have to train to be like an intense 400-meter runner to still be able to run a good 400. Like I think that there are like lots of different ways and intensities that you can like achieve good form.
And I like to think about it as you're building. It was like with technical events like hurdle, obviously the strain is massive, but you've got to be patient.
Yeah. No, I do forget though. I do forget. Like, I hurdled for the first time like properly. Like, I know I have my little friend here, but for the first time, I actually like sprinted over hurdles like last week, and the whole week afterwards, my hamstrings were just killing me. Like the whole time, and I was like, this. I would on a regular basis, I would do this like 3 times every week. I would run over hurdles. Yeah, I can't just one time, just in isolation, is just the most painful thing. And like you often it is lost on people when you do something so frequently that is actually a really strenuous activity, and it takes a lot on your muscles to do that. So
I like to think of it like you're building up like the tower of cards, like you're stacking them together like that. Obviously, you want to get them as tall as possible, but if you go too quickly, all of it will come down and you have to start again from the
It's
bottom.
true. You'll build them up again. You'll get those cards.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's the main lesson to take from this.
That's the
is that
main lesson to take.
If you get knocked down, don't rush into it again. Take your time.
Don't
build up
look down
slow.
the cards. You know.
But again, with obviously with a lot of people coming out of lockdown as well, they're going to want to get stuck straight back into it. And
No,
you need
don't
to be
do that. Don't do that. Just take it easy. Take it
I don't think it's easy.
No,
Take it.
yeah.
Work
One
smart
time,
and
I mean,
hard.
yesterday, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yesterday at training, I was like, I was almost asking John. I was like, "Do you think I could just sprint over these hurdles?" Like, and he was like, he looked at me like, "Are you crazy? No. Like, what are you doing? You will not be sprinting over these hurdles." I was like, "Okay, fine." Anyway, I feel like I've talked so much. I'm sorry.
It's good. I think we've definitely had a fulfilling Hurdlers in the House episode. Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much
you.
for joining me
Of
on
course.
Instagram. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for everyone that watched. I hope you learned a lot if you managed to watch the full thing. I'm not sure how long
Yeah.
we were talking
And
for.
if anyone has any questions about America, I do mean this. You can just send me a message and ask me about it because I didn't really know that many people who wanted to do that, and I was in it outside of my agency, who obviously kind of they are positive about it. There are like two sides to every story, so if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Yeah, you need help with that sort of thing. I mean, you can do it on your own, but yeah. All right, thanks, Izzy. It was good to see you. Enjoy lockdown and the rest of training.
I will. Thank you.
Bye bye.